Welcome to the next perfect step, which is our seventh episode, I believe. And this is a spiritual conversation that we have between Lori and I. And we want to include you and welcome you into the conversation. And we enjoy that you're viewing, and we welcome your comments. So,
hi, welcome everyone. Perfect. So today we thought we'd start. I had posted recently messages that I get from Mike Dooley, which is Messages from the Universe. And I thought that I would share another one and see where the conversation brings us from there. See if it can open a discussion, right? So this was posted. Actually, I'm not sure what the day was. I don't think it really matters. The baby steps in the beginning of a journey always seems inadequate compared to the brilliance of the dream that inspired them. This is natural. If the dream wasn't so far out there and dazzling, it wouldn't be worth dreaming. Just don't be led to think that the physical ground you cover with your baby steps is all that they accomplish. Because for every mortal step you take, another clog in the great wheel behind the curtain of time and space advances. And with it, 10,000 new possibilities. Better than Star Trek from the universe.
wow. That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
I love these. I love these conversations. I love the way they make me think. I just love receiving them every morning. And if you want to receive your own, again, the website is www.tut.com, and you can get yours. They're free in your email every morning. But yeah, so I love that message because I always, in the beginning, we always want to jump to the end, right? I mean, and we've been talking about celebrating the baby steps and how important those baby steps are. And I'd like to share with you one of the, I don't know if it's a parable, I would call it a parable, but we all know the story of the tortoise and the hare. And to make it real for you, I always tell a story to my clients that there's the tortoise and the hare. And imagine them at the starting line, and they are both carrying bags and bags and bags of bricks, right? And the rabbit jumps and jumps and jumps until he reaches the finish line. And he's reached the finish line, but he is exhausted. He falls over, his body hurts. He's too tired to even talk or celebrate. He's exhausted from carrying all the bags to the finish line. And the tortoise slowly walks down the path, and every step drops a brick, drops a brick, drops a brick, drops a brick, drops a brick. So when he reaches the finish line, he doesn't have any bags left. He can breathe. He's excited. He feels light and airy. He's celebrating, not because he made it there first, but because he feels great when he made it there. And that's the journey we're on, right? We're moving our blocks, we're moving our belief systems, finding out who we are, releasing all of those bricks. So it's in the baby steps on our journey, not getting to the finish line. And that's a lot of what I think like that message was saying, right? And one of the first exercises that I started doing, I believe my teacher, Bridget Murphy, had started in a beautiful meditation, getting us to do, was to find 3 things you're grateful for every day, right? Write it down, even if it's as simple as, I'm grateful that I'm doing this exercise. I'm grateful I woke up this morning. Like, find 3 things you're grateful for. And then in the morning, if you're writing them at night, in the morning, reread them. If you're writing them in the morning when you first get up, reread them before you go to bed. It seems like a silly exercise, but I have seen it create miracles in people's lives. I've seen people who come in totally, totally depressed, and I can feel it lifting off them. Another great, great exercise that then I add, and these are baby steps. You start to become more grateful for bigger things as you go along. But in the beginning, it's really uncomfortable and difficult to do these exercises. Write down 3 things you love about yourself every day. And in the beginning, again, it's going to be really tough if you're not used to looking at the good things, only the bad things. So again, I loved that I showed up today. I loved that I took the time for myself for 2 minutes to write this down. I love the color of my eyes. Anything to start with. And it grows and grows and grows. And those are the baby steps that make huge life-changing changes in your life. And yet they seem so simple, and it's not things we want to do. But again, I have seen them create miracles in people's lives.
Yeah, gratitude is so important because it's a whole new way of looking at something, and you're not looking at it like in this negative mindset. You change your whole mindset and look at it in a positive way. And that's probably one of the ways you can drop some baggage is being grateful. And I wanted to share one of our listeners. Her name is Angela Wells. She said how she starts her day is, I've changed my routine. I wake up and get up immediately and say how grateful I am for this new day. I get coffee and sit outside with my thoughts and intentions for the day. If I'm stuck, I take a 3-mile walk to clear. But that was pretty great. So she has a gratitude practice as well. Thank you, Angela.
Yeah, and that's important, creating new routines in our lives. We're not taught to look at the positive. We're taught to look at what needs to be fixed, right? And it's really not about fixing something. It's about changing the routines, changing the way we think, right? Which like Angela, will help create a really good day for ourselves. Instead of getting up in the morning and just going on autopilot, right? Without even thinking about it. We're on autopilot. And Angela has created a new way in her morning routine to start off on the right foot, on a better day, which is just great.
Yeah, that's a good baby step. As far when you were saying baby steps, it reminded me of the movie What About Bob, where Dreyfus is the psychologist and he writes this big book about baby steps. But I always loved that. And I always thought about, baby steps and what does that entail? Instead of taking those giant leaps like the rabbit did, just take like small steps and you get good results. You just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you have any other notes from the universe?
I do. Let's see. Imagine yourself on a warm summer evening before a calm, clear pond. The moon is full, the stars are shining, whippoorwills are whippoorwilling, and I am with you. Now, do you know how to float on water? For the most part, you do absolutely nothing, at which point I can hold you at the surface, in the palm of my hand. It's simply a matter of physics, the laws of time and space, and your natural state. Are you with me? Okay, now you'll have to trust me. But it's the same when it comes to floating in wealth and abundance, health and harmony, friends and laughter. These things are your natural state. You default settings the givens in this great adventure. These are where true balance is found. They can be yours without strenuous effort. You don't have to visualize them. Just stop the argument that claims you're without. Surrender the struggle that presumes you lack. Come out from the fort that has kept you safe and follow your heart with abandonment. You can breathe now, the universe.
I like that, coming out from the fort and just being free. Because sometimes we tend to hide and we tend to want to protect ourselves. And one of the messages that I've been hearing is just to open your heart as much as possible, and just that you don't have to defend yourself, that you're not going to be hurt, because the universe literally has your back. It's really we are so loved, and we have no idea how much we are loved and how much we can love and how much love can come through us if we just allow that. And so that message to me seems like complete freedom and complete peace in trusting that the universe has you covered.
Right. I love the part where to me that stood out was that it can be yours without strenuous effort. You don't have to visualize them. You just have to stop fighting for your limitations. Right. And that was one of the really, really big baby steps for me on my journey, was that I noticed that I would have these battles in my head and I was fighting for my limitation. Like I was telling the universe all the reasons why I couldn't be abundant or I couldn't have this, when at the same time I was begging and fighting for the same things I was fighting to keep, my limitations. And the baby steps started with just noticing those thoughts, right? We talk about beliefs and our truths. And for me, that is just a thought you keep repeating over and over in your head. And so it becomes your truth because you're repeating that thought over and over and over in your head. And so you get to decide which thoughts you want to keep repeating over and over again.
Right.
But first you have to see them for what they are. You have to see the ones that keep coming up that you're not even noticing, that just have always been there, your old story. And then start consciously creating the story you want to keep repeating in your head until it becomes your normal, until the old voice fades away.
Right. And I heard someone say that, I don't remember who it was, but that the voice that you listen to is a quiet voice, not the one that's like your crazy roommate, you know, just you listen to that voice that's loving and peaceful, and that's what you follow and listen to. That's your intuition and your higher self. But it's not a crazy voice. Or the ones that you tell, you know, like you were talking about self-love, the voices that, if you notice sometimes how we talk to ourselves in our heads, it's crazy. I mean, you wouldn't say that to anyone else, but you say it to yourself. So you notice that, like you were saying, just that's one step, is to notice, oh my gosh, what am I saying to myself? And then change that and say, no, maybe, as you were mentioning, writing down 3 things that you love about yourself, or just put your hands on your heart and just, you know, send love to yourself. It's amazing how the programming comes through all the time, and we can change it. We can be aware of it, and we can choose to make a difference and choose to change those thoughts into loving thoughts and loving words. It takes some time, just being aware, but you know, there's really no pressure either. You're just allowing the changes to come, allowing the awareness, allowing the love for yourself and for other people just to come through, just by being aware.
Yeah. And it is uncomfortable when we're so used to doing something and it's normal to us, whether it's good or bad. I mean, we may feel horrible doing it, but it's normal to us.
Mhm.
And so we continue to do it, and it's uncomfortable. change is uncomfortable. And, you know, it's the process of, if you're uncomfortable, saying to yourself, well, if I'm uncomfortable, then I'm creating big change in my life, then change is coming. And how much better does that feel when you say that to yourself? Instead of, wow, I'm really uncomfortable, I don't like this. You know, if you can sit and go, wow, I noticed, like, I'm really uncomfortable in this spot. And wow, what an opportunity that I am creating for myself. I am creating change in my life, and the change I want to happen, the positive change, it makes uncomfortable feel better.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, for sure. Yes, feeling like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. I wonder what wonderful thing is going to happen.
Right.
Stepping
Right.
through that.
Yeah, and it makes it a little easier to sit in the uncomfortable when you know that the outcome is going to be fabulous, because we associate uncomfortable with bad, right? Like, you know, we're uncomfortable. This isn't right. We shouldn't be uncomfortable. And yet reprogramming us to say, oh wow, look at me. I'm really uncomfortable. I must be creating big changes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's those little things that big miracles can happen. Like I said, those exercises seem tedious and boring. And how am I going to write down 3 things I like about myself? But I have seen it create humongous miracles if you really do it. If you really give yourself, it only takes 2 minutes to do it. 2 minutes at night, 2 minutes in the morning. Write it, reread it.
Would be interesting.
Try it. I challenge you to try it. Week,
Right.
2 weeks, as long as you can. It will create humongous changes in your life.
I'd like to ask our listeners to do that and maybe write in and tell us what happens when you do this exercise. It'd be great to do. I'm going to do it as well.
Great. I would love to hear how it's working for people, how uncomfortable it is in the beginning, how much you're resisting not wanting to do it. You know, those are some big things that are coming up for me. I got together with Lori on the weekend, and we were having a conversation about how emotions sit in certain body parts and which body parts relate to certain emotions are sitting, where they're sitting in your body. And Lori said to me, does that resonate with you? And at first I was like, not really. It was about anger. I'll just say it was about anger sitting in my body. And I was like, no, not really. I don't really, I mean, I have angry moments, but I'm not. Well, I can tell you on my ride home, which was an amazing story for another time, but on my way home, I'm thinking, like, you know, some of the body parts all had to do with anger. So what's the difference between each one and the anger and where it sits? And I'm just kind of going through this expansive, like, wow, this is kind of curious, like, how come, you know, it's all this way? And I'm just going through this process in my head, and events started popping up. There were different things that were showing me irritation. Oh, there were events in my life past, like, oh, I'm not irritated and angry right at this moment, or I don't really feel like I'm holding on to this anger. And then these events started coming up that I hadn't even thought about in years. I mean, some way back 20 years ago, that clearly were still sitting in my body, and I hadn't even thought about it. Wasn't even angry or irritated about it anymore, but when I thought about it, I was. And I realized that it wasn't coming up for me to relive it or for me to even do anything with it, except say, this is what you're holding in your body. And now that you know, we can release it. And I kept asking, like, really, is it that simple? And the answer is always yes. we make healing way harder than it has to be. Way, way harder than it has to be. It can be that simple. The problem we have is we don't believe it's that simple. Even though I'm hearing that it's that simple, I don't believe it's that simple because I find myself going back trying to keep doing it. Like, you've already done it. It's already gone. And yet I'm still trying to do it. So I'm bringing it back. I let it go and release it almost like with a, with a rope, and I bring it back. And I have to just keep doing this and noticing that about myself until I let go of the rope and there's no rope to pull back. So don't beat yourself up when you go, yeah, no, it's really not that simple. It is, but we don't know how to make it that simple. So it's noticing that you're pulling it back and thinking that it's not healed and it's not that simple. Again, something I'm working on. So as I'm saying it, like I'm fluttering, because there is a part of me who doesn't truly fully buy into what I'm just saying, even though that every cell in my body knows that what I just said is true. But there is a part of me that's fighting what I just said.
Beautiful. That's pretty powerful, Lori, what you just shared. Yeah, and I think that I'm using the word programmed, or we were taught that we have to work really hard to get rid of stuff. You have to work really hard to clean up our act and all that. But that's amazing that you had those pictures coming up. And I notice that in my life too. I'll notice patterns, or I'll notice, oh, that's interesting, you're doing this again, or you're thinking like this again. So you're noticing. And then you shared over the weekend too, that when you do notice something, that you just basically bring it up to the light and just let it go for healing. Just and it can just be a releasing, a surrendering feeling. Just, you don't have, whatever works for you, but just go, all right, it's gone. It's not here.
Yeah, that I got from Sarah Landon. She has a beautiful meditation about releasing it to the light. I really simplify this beautiful meditation, but that's what it is. Like, the first time it's like a 10 to 15 minute meditation. And each time you do it, you don't need the whole process. Like, it just becomes easier, right? You envision what you want to release, whether it's, a fight between somebody, or anger or irritation, or like I had past memories come up, and you just place them in your hand. Okay. And you see it outside of yourself now instead of inside. And you just raise your hand up and you envision a beautiful beam of white light coming down into your hands. And you just hand it over to the light and say, thank you, light, for taking this and transmuting it into truth. And then you fill up those empty spaces with that beautiful light. And again, like, there was a beautiful 10 to 15 minute meditation, and I highly recommend going and listening to Sarah Landon's meditation. But again, it really can be that simple. And after a while, like, I just noticed constantly, I'm like, here, we're up again, here. Just keep taking it.
Bailing out the boat.
Bailing out the boat, because I'm not plugging the holes. I just keep bailing the boat. And eventually I'll realize it, and I'll find all the holes and we'll plug them all up, and then we'll empty the boat, right? But yeah. I'm not going to beat myself up for, again, not seeing what's under the water, what I haven't been able to see yet. And if I ask, I can see it. So, and that's really, I mean, again, we talk about these baby steps. Really, the first most important step is to become aware and observe without judgment what we're thinking, what our thoughts are, what our patterns are, what we're doing without even knowing we're doing, how we're talking about ourselves, how we're treating ourselves. So those are really important baby steps. And I want to just take this opportunity to thank some of our listeners who participated in the poll. Dawn Marie Bradbury, Penny Saccone, Rochella Cross, and Amber Josephson. And they wanted to have conversations around stepping into your true self and power and limiting beliefs. And everything we just talked about goes into those two things. Finding your true self is literally ripping apart all of the old beliefs, the things we're supposed to be. So as we grow up, we're told we're supposed to be this as a wife, we're supposed to be this as a daughter, we're supposed to be this as a mother, we're supposed to be this in society, we're supposed to be this as a man or a woman. And can we find, my journey, I started this whole journey because I'd gotten to a point of such deep depression because I had no idea who I was. I knew who I was for everybody else, and I felt like I was failing miserably at every job I was appointed. And I needed to know who I was. I had no idea who I was. And that started my journey of, who am I living up to? Who says I have to be this way as a mother? And I found there's so many different standards. I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. So what am I trying to live up to? So finding your true self is what you want to live up to, and getting rid of all of what people are putting on you and who you're living up to, and start living up to yourself, finding out who you are at your true core.
Yeah, that's that. Thank you for sharing that. That's kind of similar to how I started too. I had, as a point in my life where everything that I had believed in or had been brought up to believe in, I realized was not real or wasn't true, and kind of like took the rug out of under my feet. I'm like, well, now what? Now what do I believe? Now what's going on? And I kind of did a tailspin for a couple of years trying to figure it out. And I don't know, it just eventually the universe put me back on my feet and said, look, let's start baby steps, basically finding out who you are, who I always had, great trust in the universe. And that came out and just started leading me back to learning more about who I am, who my true self is, what I believe, not what I've been told to believe, but what I know is true. And like you said, in every cell of my body. And that took some time, took a long time, but I'm so grateful that the rug was pulled out from under my feet and, went through some tough times, but it was worth it because, now I'm so grateful for my life. I'm so grateful for you and for all the, the beautiful people in my life. And it's just been incredible. I would never have foreseen it or planned it for myself. It just unfolded. And because I had that little bit of a trust that I knew I was going to be taken care of, and boy, it was worth it.
Yeah, that is quite a journey, is to trust, right? And it's the one thing I love about you. I just, you say, you have this little bit, and yet I just see it, just the same thing with love. Like, I just see it flow from you, right? And it's the one thing that you've always inspired me is I've watched you trust, and I've watched amazing, life-changing manifestations happen in your life. And I always think, man, if I could just have a little bit of what she had, I'd be golden.
You do.
We all do. We all do.
Yes.
I just see it so much in you, and you inspire me to have that same faith. And when trust has not been, or when you've been hurt in your life from trusting the wrong thing, it's very difficult to get back on to trust. the universe, to trust God, source, whatever your higher self. And yet, if you just, as we talked about the comfort zone, if you get out of your comfort zone just a little bit in a safe environment, it doesn't have to be like, okay, I'm going to jump off this mountain and see, and I mean literal mountain, and see if I don't kill myself. If you take little baby steps in the trust, you're going to see more and more the results of that faith and that trust. And it will become your comfort, and you will put your full trust in it. But again, don't try to jump to the end. Don't try to jump off the mountain before you really fully have trust. It's the baby steps, and it's the wonderful miracles that you get to see when your trust becomes, when you get to see the results of trust and
Yes.
faith. Those are the beautiful, magical moments. And if we try to jump off the mountain first, we miss all of those things.
Right. Right. That's very true. Those things that happen along the way build your trust, build your joy, build your world, and fill your heart. Those really are important, as you said. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So we'd love to hear, your thoughts. We definitely would love to hear about how the exercise is going for you. Or either any discussion about, our journey and maybe some of the same things you're seeing in your life, and how we can support you through the baby steps too, right? I mean, this is what we want to create, right? We're all going through these baby steps, and we want to celebrate them together. So let us share in that.
Yes, please, comment on below, subscribe and like, and also on Facebook, we have a page called The Next Perfect Step. If you'd like to join in the discussion there, we'd love to have you. But we'd love to hear from you, and just please let us invite you into this community. We'd love to be part of it, yours.
Yeah.
So we'll see you next time on The Next Perfect Step. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.